I'd like to talk about one scene of the movie that you arrive, you're coming back to the church, to your childhood church.
Yeah.
And sometimes we plan things ahead. And in this scene, did you plan arriving to the church when the Maria Magdalena story was told at the same day, or was it by accident?
Well, no. You never know what's going. You know, it's. You never know what the subject of the
daily
service is.
Yes.
You don't know this ahead, so this was really a whatever coincidence or however you want to call it. No, the only thing I planned was going to the church and meeting my father. But of course I didn't know that this Maria Magdalena thing is going to be the theme of the service for this day.
Yes, so we thought, because sometimes in documentary, even though it's document the moment, we can direct and we can control.
Yeah.
So
Well,
in this case, it wasn't like
not at this point, no.
Yeah, that's interesting because lots of students here were interested in this question.
Yeah, and maybe of real life actually, that sometimes you think you have things under control and you're like this. I mean, for me, for example, it was I had big distance to this church thing, and I still have it, but at this point, it got me pretty bad, you know.
Yes.
So I went there and I thought, okay, I'm going to, film whatever we can film, and we were allowed to, have the camera only until the service starts. That's why there's no prayer, or there's no actual, service in the film. So we had to, shut down the camera when the service actually started. And I thought, okay, we have this under control, and we do this, and we do that, and my grandmother was there, and okay, take this picture, that picture, and suddenly the service started, and I had no idea, and I was really, goosebumps.
Yes.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Was very strange. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so I guess we'll continue with the students. They have also questions. I'd like you to invite them one by one. Go ahead, Jens.
Okay, I have some names here. Hadar?
Yeah.
Yes.
Shalom.
Hi.
Hi. Where are you? But it's really strange because you look in such a different direction than, I picture on the front and I just see you looking somewhere else. And
Okay. For how long did you shoot the film?
Well, the actual shooting was about 6 weeks. So 3 weeks in my hometown, like 1.5 days in Munich, almost 3 weeks in my hometown, another 3 weeks in Lebanon, 2.5 weeks.
I guess, yeah. Was it 6 whole weeks or was it in breaks?
No, we shot it in one piece. That was important for me. I didn't want to have any interruptions. So I think, well, the telephone calls were about, I think, 2 days before we took the train to my hometown. And then we were shooting straight there for 3 weeks, and we returned to Munich for, I think, 2 days. And then we took the plane to Lebanon.
Okay.
But the editing was, I don't know if this question is going to turn up, but maybe this is interesting too, but it took me like 10 years to start the film. So talking about how long did the shooting or the film, last, it's the shooting was actually the shortest time of everything. So and after I returned, I didn't look at the material for 1.5 years. Just to solve things for myself, and the editing again was almost 1.5 years. So the whole film from shooting to finishing, it took 3 years.
Okay, wow, so long process, yes. But
yeah, we had so much material. We had 120 hours of material.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's a lot. Yeah.
A lot, yeah.
Okay, Hadar, the next question.
Do you think you could have shot the sitting interviews differently, like walking or during actions?
If I thought about it, or
What?
why did I do it?
Do you think you could do that differently, or the sitting interviews?
I think what Hadar is trying to ask is, we learned that documentary is action cinema.
Yeah.
You know, cinema is going through action and not just talking. And
Talking heads, yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. So that's what Hadar.
They are. Well, of course, I know this too, and it is always, you know, the instinct of a director to look for the action and to find other ways of telling things. But and there are some sequences, like with my little brother, we were walking, but it turned out, and I, of course, I have a lot of, I told you, 120 hours of material, and there are a lot of scenes where I try to, you know, find situations and show, you know, the people in action or talk with them in action. But it turned out that the real interviews or the most intense situations were created when we sat down and talked for a long time, and they forgot the camera, and the sitting situation created some kind of like a very concentrated atmosphere, and it turned out that this is really the only option of you know, getting into the depth of the subject. And I think I didn't have a choice. I didn't have an alternative to those concentrated scenes. And at the end, I have to say, I kind of like it too, because also for the audience, they sit down. That's what I think. You know, they sit down with the people and listen, and there's not too much
going around.
Not a disturbance. You know, if there are not too many actions, it's just what they say, and you cannot escape. You know, through watching the actions.
Yes.
But I have to say, I try to show them, like I try to find locations where they are in a surrounding which has a connection to them. Like my grandmother in the cafe, it's like the cafe she always goes to, or my mother in the hospital, that's where she is working and where it took place. And so I try to at least have the surrounding, you know,
natural area of the cafe.
Yeah, like that tells more than just, you know, sitting in a neutral room.
Yes. Okay, yes.
Thank you.
No, thank you. I have to say one thing, sorry. I have to say one thing. I'm very, very honored, and I'm very happy that, and I think it's a very special thing that I'm talking to you, or you're talking to me, and you're in Israel, and I'm in Germany, and this is, I think it's a beautiful thing that we have this cultural exchange, and we have this triangle between, you know, well, Germany, Israel, and Lebanon. This is crazy.
Okay, so Jans, would you like to invite the next one?
Yeah, Hila. I just no faces, just names. No face. Hello.
Did you had in mind meeting Ali Abu Khalil without the camera for the first time? Where is the line between strong the commentary and between keep your privacy?
Well,
just a second, Jans. Before you answer, I'd like to tell something to the students. עכשיו הילה דיברה איתו על משהו מאוד חשוב שנראה לי עברתם אותו חלקכם בשנה שעברה, בין העניין הזה של השמירת פרטיות לבין לחשוף את עצמך בצורה כל כך פתוחה וגלויה כלפי כל הצופים.
This line is very, very thin in this case, of course, and For me, I defined it. I don't know. I mean, you understand English pretty good, yes?
Yes.
So I don't know if you get the difference, but for me, I always define it as, the line between a personal film and a private film.
Yes.
So, meaning private is something that you should, you do it for yourself, and it's like a therapy, and it's really for yourself, and nobody wants to see it.
Yeah.
And a personal film has a very, personal story, but it tells more than the private story. It has something that is bigger than just the private story, and it has something maybe universal. So, and this line is very, very thin in this case. And I have to be honest, I was always afraid that I crossed this line, that, I suddenly create a private film and just for me, and not interesting for anybody else. And I guess the process between those two things, personal and private film, is not created in the shooting itself. It's created in the editing. And I think that was the reason, and I think it was very important that I took the distance after shooting and, solved all those private stuff for myself, and then went back with a clear view on the material and the film for the editing again. So, coming to your question is, I was very, very afraid of meeting Ali Abu Khalil with the camera, because I was afraid that it is, you have private television in Israel?
Yes. What do you mean by private television?
Well, in Germany we have like the
public and the commercial.
Yeah, like the kind of state governmental sponsored television, which has like more cultural content, and you have the commercial private television.
Yes.
And they are like those real life, kind of docu-soap kind of things. People meeting their parents and, please forgive me, serious, and all those things. And Germany looks for the superstar, those kind of things.
Yes.
So I was very, very afraid that this is, this first encounter with the camera is something very voyeuristic. And, but I wanted to do it. I mean, I had the feeling I have to do it. I have to, in the editing I could have thrown it out if it was, bad. But for me it's one of the most beautiful moments in the film. So, I was very afraid of this situation, and I'm very excited. I guess you can see this in the film too, but I had the feeling I have to do it, meeting him. I tried to find ways to get around it, but when it took place, I knew I have to do it. So no, I didn't. I tried to escape this situation, but there was no alternative to it.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know if I answered your question, but I don't know where the line is between, a strong documentary and my privacy. I guess you create this line really in editing, not while you shoot. Because if you start to censor yourself while you're shooting, you will never get to the point where it starts to be interesting. So censoring is editing. There you take parts out, and you take the parts out that makes it strange for yourself and for the audience. Yes. But while you're shooting, you should go for it, I guess.